Alright, you guys, it's going to be my first episode of Inner Demons. But before I get into this, there's a few things I want to start out by saying. So last week, I did a live with Sandman. This was the first time that I talked about doing these videos. Before I get into this, though, there's a few things I want to start out by saying. So, because of everything that happened in my past, social media was one of the last things that I ever thought I would be getting into. Honestly, when I first got out of custody, in the last case that I caught, the indictment, social media was my worst enemy. That's the way I was looking at it. But since then, the mask came off and I started doing open social media. For those of you that have been following me, I've been doing social media for about 4.5, maybe 5 years now. And I first started with another channel called Loaded News Media. I was doing a podcast with two other Mexican Mafia associates. I'll call them associates. Good dudes. And we had an idea to possibly turn that podcast into like a clubhouse type of thing where people could call in and ask questions. And I mean, we had plans. However, everything kind of fizzled out. They branched off in different directions. One of them went to school. The other one went off and did something else. I stayed with the YouTube thing. I created Paradigm Media News, and I started putting out my own content. A lot of the content that I put out, a lot of it has been geared towards mainstream media. A lot of the stuff that comes out in the media, I do my own, kind of like do my own little spills on it. The Mara Salvatrucha, stuff that's mainly gang related. That's what the channel has been geared towards, although I've been trying to branch out in other directions. But anyway, then I've also done profiles on other individuals that I've come into contact with, some of my personal experiences. Obviously, I've done the lives, I've done the premieres. There's a lot of things that I've done since I created this channel. So last week I was kicking back thinking, there's one thing that I haven't done since I created this channel, or since I've been on YouTube. I have never told you guys my story directly myself. I've never walked you through all my experiences and let you know the full extent of everything that I've been through. You guys have a pretty good idea of a lot of my background because I wrote a book. A lot of you have probably read my book. And it does give a good detailed description about a lot of the things that I've been through. But let me tell you something about my book that a lot of you don't know. So when I wrote that book, I started writing it back in 2008, 2007. I was still in custody at the Santa Clara County Jail. I was still under indictment. I was still in a bad situation, and I didn't know if I was going to make it back out to the streets. Honestly, I didn't think I was. But the way that I was looking at it when I was writing the book, at least my mindset was this, man. If I just go all out and I just put everything in my book, I go all out and I outline all my experiences and I put it all out there, these people might, because I knew that they'd eventually read it, law enforcement. I knew they'd eventually read it because I was sending my manuscript out through the mail to get it typed up so that I can get it published. But the way I was looking at it is, if I put everything out there, they're going to look at this and they're going to be like, man, we can't let this dude go. This motherfucker's created too much havoc. I mean, he's hurt a lot of people. He's caused a lot of damage throughout the years, from the time he was a kid all the way up until when he was arrested in 2004. So the book's tamed down. I used a lot of discretion about as far as what I decided to put out there and what I didn't put out there. Of course, they knew I wasn't a choir boy. They knew that I was responsible for a lot of things over the years, because people have told on me, because people have debriefed. I've been told that I've been in a lot of debriefing reports throughout the years. That a lot of individuals that debriefed, they gave up a lot of information about me. Plus, Black Widow, Operation Black Widow, I was an unindicted co-conspirator in that case, and I mean, there was a lot of things that I was involved in over the years. I wasn't going to confirm it in the book. So there's a lot of things that you guys don't know. Now that I'm removed from that environment, I'm no longer under indictment. I'm out. I'm going to talk about those things now. That's the whole purpose of these stories that I'm about to tell you guys. Um, I'm going to change some names. There's things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to keep them generic, man, because there's just things that I've done that I just don't want to play around with. I don't know everything about the statute of limitations and all that. So I'm just gonna leave things kind of like in a generic, generalized way when I describe things. And then there's people that don't want to be mentioned in these stories, and I respect that. There's people that they don't want nothing to do with YouTube. They just want to go on with their life and live a quiet, happy life, and I understand that, and I respect that. So out of respect for them, there's some names that are going to be changed. So if some of you were familiar with the story and you'd be like, man, that wasn't him, that's the reason why. The other thing I want to say is this. I don't want this to turn into a situation where people start to think that I'm glorifying this lifestyle or I'm glorifying my past, because that's not what I'm about. You know, I've never, since I came on YouTube, I've been one way, and I've stayed that way, and I'm going to continue to be that way. I've been transparent, and I've been forthright and honest about everything I've talked about. I don't fabricate and embellish or look at my views when my views are down and say, you know what, I need to talk about a neck that I stepped on, and somebody that I beat up or stabbed out there to get my views up. I don't do that. You know what I mean? To me, there's no purpose in that, because this is not about views for me. A lot of this is therapeutical for me to talk about it, and it's also, I believe that in telling these stories, I think it might benefit people along the way in every walk of life. I mean, from the time I was a youngster up until when I was an active NF gang member. I think that there's all along the way across the board, man, I think that there might be different phases that might help people. So that's why I'm going to talk about it. I obviously didn't grow up like an average 12-year-old. Average 12-year-olds are not strung out on heroin. They don't start shooting heroin with their biological mother. It's not completely unheard of either. So there is youngsters out there that might benefit from this, and I want them to know how I navigated and how I got through this, through some of the experiences that I was involved in. So that's the whole purpose for this. It's not to glorify nothing. It's not to my whole purpose is to put my story out there, to be transparent, and to I'm not a gang advocate. I'm not speaking against gangs. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm giving you guys the fine print, the things that you're not told. If you're still sitting back and there's certain things that you're glorifying, and there's certain things about that lifestyle that appeal to you, that's okay. And if you still feel that way after I tell you about my experiences, then hey, stand on it, man. Go full-fledged. If that's what you want to be a gang member, you want to be a gangster, you want to spend the rest of your life in prison, then do it. But stand on it. You know what I mean? Go full-fledged. There's no future in it. I'm living proof of it. You know what I mean? I've done it, been there, done that, walked it, talked it, lived it. So like I said, there's certain things about that lifestyle that there's certain things that are myths, there's smoke screens, and there's things that are just not true. And there's a lot of misconceptions. So my whole purpose is to just give you the facts. And again, if that's what you choose to do and you still think it appeals to you, or you think that I'm just spreading poison because I'm a sour deal, that's okay too, man. But trust me, I'm beyond that. I'm over it. So that's not what I'm about. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into my childhood first. I'm gonna go into some of the things that some of the things that were real personal for me that I didn't talk about in my book because, you know, a lot of it involved my family, and I just didn't want to put them out there like that. But again, I think it's important for other youngsters that are in their 11, 12, 13, 14, that are young like that, that are going through these kind of things, that they hear, that they hear from somebody like me that's been through it. I might help them navigate through it. I might help them get through it. I might not, who knows? But that's my purpose. So I'm gonna run it. I know you guys want me to get straight to the grit, to the gang stuff, and I'm gonna get there. And I have a lot of it, and I'm gonna be spending a lot of time going into a lot of different things that I've been involved in. But right now, I'm gonna build the foundation, how it all started, how I became a gang member, how I became addicted to heroin at the age of 12, how I got arrested at the age of 3. Not technically, but I mean, it is what you guys understand, and how some of my belief system was instilled within me from a young age, from the time I was a young kid. Didn't have nothing to do with gangs. These beliefs were instilled within me from my family and growing up. So I'm gonna walk through this kind of quick. I'm gonna try to get through this part of it quick. This is my first episode, but here we go. So one of the first things that I want to get into is my upbringing. So I was born to a mother and father that were both full-blown heroin addicts. Both of them were addicted to heroin at a young age. My mother and father lived around the corner from each other. They lived up in Daly City, California, in San Mateo County. They lived directly around the corner from each other. That's kind of how they met. Then they used to go to the same school. Anyway, my mother had me when she was 16. My father he'd end up leaving me and my mom when, probably like a year later, when I was like 1 or 2, when I was around 1 or 2. I heard stories about how he spit in my face and how he told my mom, I don't want this fucking kid, he's not my son. I don't know how true they are, but that's what I was told. Anyway, he dipped out when I was around 2. My mom ended up getting into another relationship with another guy that she had 2 other sons with. So I have 2 other half-brothers. One of them got lost in the system, got adopted out, don't know him, never met him, never seen him, don't know nothing about him. The other one, up until a couple years ago, I was put in touch with one of my other brothers. I have a relationship with them. We talk all the time, but we never seen each other over the years when we were both getting shuffled around in different foster homes. Anyway, my mother and father, when they were together, they used to fight like cats and dogs, man. I still remember things from when I was 2 or 3 years old. People have asked me before, how is that even possible? I don't know, but I still remember. I mean, a lot of it is kind of blurred, but I still remember certain things that happened. I remember when my mom and dad used to fight, and they used to fight like cats and dogs. They got into a fight where they both stabbed each other. It was a toxic relationship, man, until my dad finally left. The other guy that my mom hooked up with, their relationship didn't last too long. So my mom was stuck with 3 sons. She was young, she was addicted to heroin, and she didn't have any parenting skills, and she was financially incapable of taking care of us. So she did what any mother would do that had their kids' best interests at heart. She put us in foster care. I'm not sure why my other brother got adopted out, but he got adopted out. Me and my other brother were put in foster care. I don't know the circumstances how my other brother went into foster care, but what I do know about him is this: he got lucky. He was his dad's biological mother and father, his grandmother and grandfather were foster care providers, so they took him in, which, it prevented him from getting lost in the system. Plus, he was around his biological family. Me, myself, I still remember the day when my mom took me down to social services, to turn me over to foster care. Swear to God, I remember that day, man. You know, I remember me and my mom walking into a building, and we were holding hands, and for some reason my mom started crying. I remember that, and I was too young, obviously, to know what they were talking about. But I remember we walked up to somebody, and my mom knelt down, and she said something to me. She was bawling, and she gave me a hug and a kiss, and then she took my little hand and she handed my hand to the service workers' hand, whatever they're called. She handed my hand to the female or the male, whatever it was, man, whoever it was. I remember that part. And then my mom turned around and walked away. And I remember standing there watching her as a young kid, thinking like, where are you going? And I couldn't understand why she was crying. You know, the thing I can say about that is this, man. I don't know why, but I always try to protect my mom. I try to protect her emotionally. I never wanted to see her hurt. I never cried when I was a kid. I didn't cry that day. Most kids probably would have cried. Their mom was walking away. They would have probably been bawling. I stood there and I looked, and I didn't want her to see me hurting because I didn't want her to hurt. You know what I mean? It's crazy, but even over the years later, when I would get to know my mother, you know, as our relationship developed and we became closer, I still, even when I was in foster care, I still never cried in front of her. I always wanted her to understand that I'm okay. You know, I'm gonna be all right. I wanted her to know that I wasn't hurting. It's crazy, but I remember that too. You know, before she put us in foster care, though, let me back up and tell you guys this one little short story I remember too. The other thing I remember is when I was around 3 years old, I was with one of my uncles, and my mom, I guess she let me go out with one of my uncles, and I remember being on a freeway with this cat, and he took me on a high-speed chase. Fool took me on a good one, man. From what I remember, he almost flipped the car, but he ended up pulling over on the freeway. He got out and he ran into the trees. That's all I remember. And I remember a bunch of cops pulled up, and they ran after him. Like 20 minutes later, they brought this fool out. He had leaves all in his hair and shit. They probably gave him some therapy back there. That was like the first time I came into contact with law enforcement. It's my story. I got arrested. I was 3 years old. Nah, but seriously, that was the first time I came into contact with law enforcement. From what I was told about that incident, I was taken back to child services, and then my mom had to come pick me up. And then after that is when I ended up getting put into foster care. So, from the time I was around, it had to be around between 2 and 3 until I want to say 9 or 10 is when I was put in foster care. I was placed in different foster homes. There was 3 foster homes I was placed in. I remember them, all 3 of them, and I'm gonna say 2 of them were bad, and one of them was okay. The first one I was in, it was with I believe the first one was with the Africano family, and the mother and father fought like cats and dogs too, man. I think there was like 2 or 3 other kids that lived there. They were also in foster care, and then they had biological kids. So there was like 5 of us.